Well, well, good afternoon, and thank you, Dr. Eller. So, yeah, my name is Lopez-Perez. I'm one of the first-year fellows. So, my presentation, well, the title is How the World Ends. So, the reason that I choose basically this topic is that because actually I'm a big movie fan. Also, I like in my lazy time see TV series, right? So I always was interested regarding, also actually just scared about these old movies about the epidemic, pandemic, apocalyptic events, how the population is a zombie, the other is dead, they're fighting, only 100 people are fighting for their life. But what I found in common in all these movies is that the cause of this chaos is an infection, right? Normally it could be a virus, it could be something like a lab mistake, it could be just in purpose, the government, just the bad people, right? Maybe they were looking for a cure for something, everything went wrong. So I don't know, you remember the Will Smith movie, I Am Legend? Actually the virus is called creeping virus, doesn't exist, right? But it was a cure for cancer. It was derived from the measles virus. So eventually it got mutated and patient has side effects regarding rabies-like syndrome. But although this looks crazy, we know that bacteria are being used for cancer treatment right now. You can use it for vectors, you could be using for increased immunogenicity, for example, E. coli, Klebsiella, Salmonella, Clostridium. Even without BCG vaccine, the BCG, right? So, and the other one, contagion, I was looking information about that, and actually the virus is a combination between Nipah virus and the influenza. That's something that obviously can be done, right? But all this, it's interesting how these people can choose some reality and then do this picture. So the other thing is that I want you to notice the one that said fatal contact, bird flu in America. Just remember that movie, right? So this is it's not related to the topic, but it's a good movie, right? So Bill Gates in one of the conference in 2016, it was like a general security conference. He mentioned that whether it occurs by a quirk of nature or at the hand of a terrorist, epidemiologists say a fast-moving airborne pathogen could kill more than 30 million people in less than a year. And they say there is a reasonable probability the world will experience such an outbreak in the next 10 to 15 years. So our topic, bioterrorism, right? So pretty simple. Is the purpose use of it could be a virus, it could be a bacteria, it could be a toxin to cause damage, illness, it could kill people just for personal or political agendas, right? But the important thing here is that not only to kill people, you can kill livestock, crops, you can create resources, you can chaos, not only killing people, right? And unfortunately, the things that this type of terrorism is more easy to produce than the other type of terrorist attack. So it's in the nature. They say that you don't require specialized knowledge. I think that means that you don't have to be expert or have a PhD to do this in the labs, but at least you have to have a little knowledge, right? And the thing is that the products are inexpensive, right? Because it's in our nature. So the CDC, basically the way that you can transmit this attack will be airborne, it will be explosive device, it could be food or water, or even through your skin. And the thing is that the people that was going to do this attack, good for them, right? They can escape because we will never know who's the one that plays the infection, or they can have time to escape, right? So we are the human being, or we are like a savage nature, right? So the thing we are in war. So the use of biological weapon is not new, right? So in 1155, the Roman Emperor Barbossa, he literally threw dead corpse through the walls. So he infected the water system trying to conquer Italy. So basically all the water from the enemy was infected with dead bodies. And 1346, this guy went to another level. So the Mongol army, or the Tartar forces, they literally catapult bodies of patients that were infected with the plague. Some of these people were dead, some of the people were still alive. So basically they infected all the the city of the city. I think the Qatar. I think it was the name of the city. So they have to eventually evacuate the city. 1495, the Spanish army, they took the blood from the patient with leprosy, and they mixed the blood with wine, and they sold the wine to the French enemies. 1710, the Russian did the same thing that the Mongol did in 1346. They threw plague, dead bodies to the Swedish army. And 1763, the British army, they took blankets from the smallpox and yellow fever patients, and they gave as a gift to the Native Americans, and they spread the smallpox to this population. 1797, Napoleon. There was during the war, they called the river fever. They didn't knew what was happening there, but eventually we knew that it was malaria. So what he did was he flooded all the territory around the British army. So that way the malaria mosquito was enhanced all the spread of the malaria. So they basically, the British, they lost the battle before even going to the battle. So 1863, Yellow Jack, I don't know if you have seen this cartoon before, but it was during the US Civil War. The Confederates, they took clothes from patients that had yellow fever, and they sell the clothes to the Union troops. World War I. Here in the World War I and the World War II probably was the biggest biological threat, right? And basically they infect the horses and the mules with glanders. Glanders is the Burkholderia malay. It's not the same as myelidosis, right? Instead of pseudomalaise, malay. The infection from animal to human is not that really, it's low probability, but the thing is that they kill all these animals. So basically thousands of horses, mules, they are dead. So the way that they transport by themselves, basically they were like losing a battle there, right? In World War II, actually the Japanese, they had a unit called, this unit was called the 731. It was a unit that they did a lot of research. Basically, what they did, they took some bombs, and in the bombs they placed some fleas that were infected with the plague. They threw the bomb to a small town in China. So basically, the plague was spread all the small town, but only didn't spread there. It eventually spread to other places. So approximately 4,000 people died in 1 year. Eventually, 2,000 the next year. Also, they took cholera, and they used also typhoid. Infected all the water system through the China. So, but the thing is that the Japanese were not the only one. They say that if the war was extended for a period of time, we will be able to see what a biological warfare will be. But luckily, the war ended before. So, and 1942, the British Army, they wanted to do an anthrax attack to the German. So basically, they took some. It was called linseed cakes. That's what you give. It's like a type of food you give to the horses and to the livestock. And they infected that with anthrax spores. And they were thinking of throwing in the field. So obviously the animals will eat the anthrax. Then they will eat the animals. Eventually, get infected. They never tried, but they did it in the island called Griner Island. So basically they tried this experiment there. The degree of anthrax spore was so high that the island was in quarantine for 50 years, since 1942 until 1990. So, more recently, also you notice that most of these attack, the way that they wanted to transmit the infection, probably was not the I don't want to say the best way, right? But the way that they didn't knew how these viruses were transmitted, this infection, right? But right now, with all the technology we have, our knowledge, obviously we will know, right? So, in 1984, this was in Oregon. There was a group called the leader Rashinisi. He was like liberal group. They wanted to influence the election of the town, so they infected the salad bar with salmonella. So around 800 people got infected, although they didn't win the election, right? But obviously 800 people infected with salmonella. They tried using the salmonella typhoid, even the HIV. I don't know how they will going to pull that up, HIV infecting the salad bars, but they thought about that. So 1993 in Tokyo, there was a leader called Shoko. He was a guy that tried a lot of different terrorist attacks, but he tried to use airborne anthrax. Actually, that's one of the building in one of the base that they have. This smoke that you're seeing, that's actually, they were spreading anthrax. They also used some trucks. They were not successful because the way that they tried to use the anthrax was in non-infectious way, but they tried, right? And also try using Q fever. They also try using Ebola, also botulism, but apparently they were not successful for that. But 1996, I don't think this is like a big attack, right? But there was a place, a lab in Dallas. One of the employees went to the lab, took some Shigella, infected some muffins, some cupcakes. So probably, and he threw an email saying that there was a free cakes for everyone. So probably Greg and I will get infected, right? So they went there, and a lot of people got infected with Shigella, right? So on 2001, we know the Anthrax event. They used through the mailing envelope. 22 people were infected. The first case was in Florida, then New York. One of the Senate, he also received like a envelope threat. And for the 22 cases, 11 were cutaneous and 11 were inhaled anthrax. 5 people died secondary to this event. So 2003, this was ricin. I don't know if you heard ricin toxin. It's basically you can find the castor beans. There was in South Carolina, they tried to infect the water system with this type of toxin. The thing is that it's pretty powerful. If you go through a GI, you can have like a severe diarrhea, went to hypovolemic shock. If you inhale, you could go to respiratory failure just in hours. So they tried, but they were not successful. So there are different categories of biological weapon. The A, obviously, is the worst one. The thing is that it's the worst because it's easily disseminated, and most of them can be also transmitted person to person, right? Also, the mortality rates are pretty high. I don't know why they say might cause public panic. I think it will cause public panic, right? I don't think that's debatable. So category B, also easily disseminated, but the thing is that most of these organisms, as you see, are not person-to-person transmitted. So also the mortality is not that high. You can see brucellosis, even Q fever, psittacosis, typhoid, even the type of encephalitis, Vibrio, Cryptosporidium. And the category C, these are organisms that probably could be used in the future, but haven't used it before. So some example would be Nipah virus, hantavirus, yellow fever, and multi-drug resistant TB. So let's start. So I'm going to basically talk about the biological weapon type A, or the one that, the thing is that, okay, so the thing I choose this topic is because I also thought, can I identify one of these cases? Because sometimes the symptoms are so non-specific, so I was like, okay, can I, like a physician, ID doctor, be able to identify like a terrorist attack? So what we're dealing here, we know, this is anthrax, right? Okay, anthrax. So gram-positive bacillus, spore-forming, exotoxin producer. We have different types of anthrax. Obviously, the cutaneous, the one the contact with the hair, the wounds. The GI, the GI is more like it's not that common, right? But the mortality is like 60% of mortality, so it's a pretty dangerous one. And also, it could be used as a bioterrorist attack. Injectional, there was a new category because in Europe, 2009, 2010, there was like a increased anthrax infection in people that were using heavy heroin. So they add this type of infection. Inhalation, that will be the one that we have to fear. So did anthrax could give you pneumonia, yes or no? Pneumonia, yes or no? Actually, no. I thought that it would cause pneumonia, but it's not pneumonia, it's just ARDS. It will cause you ARDS, hemorrhagic mediastinitis, pleural effusion, cardiac effusion, right? The thing is that 50% of the cases of inhaled anthrax will go to the CNS. So these people, 50% will have meningitis. The mortality, even with treatment, could be 45% to 90%. So the good news is no person-to-person transmission. Incubation, this is a problem, right? Because it could be 1 week, 6 weeks. So people infected could travel, go in other places, eventually spread the disease. Diagnosis is basically you have to identify. It's a clinical diagnosis, but you have to do a lumbar puncture because the treatment will change. If the patient has the meningitis or you were not able to rule out, you have to treat with Cipro, meropenem, and Cytox. Like induction therapy for 2 or 3 weeks. If the meningitis ruled out, it's only Cipro plus Clinda or Cytox for 2 weeks. But you have to do an induction and then switch to a PO medication, Cipro doxy for 60 days. So it's a long treatment, right? There's some, apparently you can give also monoclonal antibodies, some anthrax immunoglobulin. I went to see in the literature, I don't know is that really how effective this type of treatment is, but they recommend that you give at least once with the other antibiotics. And post-exposure vaccine, Cipro and doxy for 60 days. So the thing is that anthrax, first, could last long in the environment. It's very stable, easily to produce. It's odorless, colorless, and tasteless. So you will not be able to identify when you have an attack. The other thing is that it can be placed on powder, spray, food, and water. Also, it can stay in people's clothes, shoes, and other objects. So basically, the way that this can spread is amazing. Basically, the incubation period we already mentioned that, and the thing is that there's a fear that is there an anthrax attack, probably will be a drug-resistant organism. And the high mortality. Let's say 100 kilograms of anthrax go to the Washington D.C. 3 million people could die just in 1 week. So this will be smallpox. Smallpox. This is an old disease. There's evidence of mummies that have like this type of small like rash. So it's the only human infection eradicated, right? The last natural outbreak was in 1949. The last natural occurring case was in 1977. Was this 3-year-old child. But the last person that died of smallpox was on the 78. Janet Parker. I don't know if you know the story of this lady. She was 40 years old when she died. She worked as a medical photographer in one university of England. So her office was 1 floor above the micro lab. So they were working with smallpox in the lab. So we went through the air conditioning, and that's the way she got infected with smallpox. So types, there's 2 types basically. The minor, less than 1%. The major, 30-50% mortality. There are different clinical categories, but the one that you will have to fear is the hemorrhagic. People will die in 3 and 4 days. The reason of the die will be basically multi-organ failure. Also, we'll have meningitis. Also, we have a inflammatory response, ARDS. The thing is that this could be spread person to person. And also, interesting, 50% of the patients that are infected with smallpox, even though they survive, they will have persistent blindness because they will have a corneal ulcer, keratitis, also some vitreous hemorrhage. There's 2 places that still have smallpox: the CDC and Russia. It's called Vector Institute. That we know. Obviously, there's some was reading that there have been some smallpox attacks that other places that were not even neither in Russia, neither in the United States. So treatment, vaccine, useless, the patient have the rash, it's a waste of time. There's the T-pox is FDA approved for treatment of smallpox. The thing is that we don't have any cases of smallpox, so we don't know if the treatment actually will work. So it's an animal study, so we don't know if we have an outbreak or something like that. We don't know if it will be efficient, right? Also, cytophobic, brain also, some studies maybe will help. So the thing with the smallpox is that even though you were vaccinated, it will not give you lifelong immunity. So is there like an outbreak? People that were vaccinated have to be re-vaccinated again, right? And the thing is that it could be transmitted droplet, also airborne, so it's easily to spread. And the incubation period is not specific. It could be 1 to 2 weeks, as we mentioned, of anthrax, so you could spread all over the place. Mortality could be high as 30%. So this one. No, it will be the plague, right? You're seeing a pest, right? So we know it could affect animals, right? Normally it's rodents, and the fleas are the one that actually could infect us, right? But the thing is that if you get the first picture, that's called the bubonic plague, right? Normally it's because of bite of infected flea, or you were with the animal infected and you had a wound, suddenly you scratch, so you also get the bubonic. The thing, you know why it's called bubonic? No. It came from the Greek word growing. That's the reason it's called bubonic. So also could be droplets, not only droplets from animals, also droplets from person to person. And remember, where are either rodents or rats, also cats, right? They can also transmit infection. Types, we spoke about the bubonic, and the septicemic is the one that will cause the DIC picture, or the purpura fulminans will be like septicemic, and the worst one will be the pneumonic. The mortality is 100% if you don't treat the patient. Patient will die in 2 or 4 days. The thing is that pneumonic could be just primary through the lung, or it could be a complication from bubonic and septicemic patient that they were not treated on time. So you know who are this guy, right? You're the physician, right? You know why they're using these birds lung mask or big. So they thought that the longer was the mask, the less chance that they have to get infected. That was the reason of having the long burst big, right? So treatment, there's no vaccine available. Ideally, it should be IV medication, streptomycin or gentamicin. But let's say you have a outbreak, an attack. Obviously, there's no way you can give IV medication to everyone, so you have to go with PO medication. In this case, it will be Cipro or Doxy for 10 days. Also for a pox exposure, yeah, Doxy, Nate. Doxy or Cipro. Yeah, pox exposure will be Doxy or Cipro, but instead of 10 days, it will be 7 days. So, remember that the Black Death, almost 2 million people die. So this is something that is a bad disease, right? So we mentioned mass production, airborne attack. The thing is that could be person-to-person transmitted, 100% mortality without treatment. So this one, nope. With botulism, right? So there. So why childs get infected with the honey? Why? What's the reason? Yeah, but the reason is because the GI system, the immune system, is not mature enough to get rid of the spores, right? But we as adults, we also can have like a GI botulism, so it's not like we're not like immune to that. So wound, obviously, iatrogenic. What would be an example of a iatrogenic botulism infection? Botox, yeah. So, but the inhaled one is the one that obviously the worst one. 6 hours after inhalation, people, descending paralysis, cranial nerve dysfunction, respiratory failure. There are 8 toxin types. Why is it important to know this type? Because it will give you a hint of epidemiology, because, for example, the type G is not supposed to be spread to persons. So knowing what type of toxin is important. Even though you can be able to identify the spore of the botulism, you won't have time for that. So if you see a patient with this type of symptoms, you have to identify it's botulism. Treatment, vaccine, take too long. Don't waste your time with the vaccine in this patient. Antitoxin will help only so the patient will not get worse, but already the damage to the nerve is not going back. The one they use for the infantile botulism will not work neither. So basically supportive care. So the thing is that I didn't knew that the botulism is the most potent toxin known. I didn't know that. So, and actually there's some they have tried using botulism to a bioterrorism attack. They tried in the Gulf War, and the guy that I mentioned before, he tried to using also botulism in the subway in Tokyo. So this is something that they have tried, something that could happen. So what about this one? Hey people, this is yeah. Thank you, Kim. So tularemia, right? So we know rodents, rabbit, hares. We know, remember tularemia, the rabbit will die. Multiple manifestation, but the one that we have to fear is the pneumonia, right? They will have pneumonia that will progress to hemorrhagic pneumonia. Symptoms 3 or 5 days after exposure. In an airborne attack, the thing is that you can have pneumonia, you can have also ocular tularemia, ulceroglandular tularemia, and oropharyngeal. So when I was reading about tularemia, I think this is the best overall player right now, because different manifestation, different way of being transmitted. So it will be difficult to identify case. I don't know how many cases of tularemia have you seen, but the thing is that they recommend doing cultures because they fear that also like a drug-resistant tularemia could be available in attacks. So you have a patient with tularemia, you always have to culture and send for susceptibilities, even though you don't suspect like it's a terrorist attack. So no person-to-person transmission. The treatment is basically the same that for the plague. The only difference is that you have to do doxy for 10 days and CPRO for 2 weeks or 3 weeks. Post-exposure prophylaxis, doxy or CPRO also. And there's a vaccine that's currently under review. So it wasn't the most infectious pathogen, bacteria known. The thing is that only 10 organisms could cause you a disease, so it needs a low inoculum to cause an infection. So it could be done an airborne attack also. We can fear that it could be a drug-resistant organism also. So what about this one? Please don't say Vibrio. Yeah, so Ebola, right? The thing is that it's not only Ebola, there's like a group of viral hemorrhagic fevers. The one that they mention is basically Ebola, Marburg, and Lassa fever. Ebola and Marburg, they're part of the filoviruses, and the Lassa is a arenavirus. So Ebola, we already know, we have read all the news. So it's a pretty significant disease, right? The thing is that they don't know who are the primary reservoir. They think probably it's the bats or the not human primates, right? But they found some Ebola in some dogs and cats. But they don't know if the one that are in the dogs and the cats are actually like the virulent strain. So anyone knows what is the spillover event? What that means? Because that's when the infection from the animal go to a human, right? So Ebola probably is transmitted. They thought maybe it was transmitted by flea, ticks, mosquitoes, right? But the only thing is that right now is you have to have contact with the animal, right? Contact. Maybe you went to eat the animal, you didn't cook it that well, So you get infected. The thing is that it could be person to person. It's like a Zika virus. It could stay in the semen also. So through sexual encounter, a patient can infect another one. So it's kind of normally it's contagious when the patient has symptoms, right? That's what the case of the guy in New York, right? He didn't have any symptoms, so technically he will not be contagious. But the thing is that you have non-specific symptoms and suddenly shock quickly. And the mortality could be 50 and 90%. So treatment, they're trying to use some monoclonal antibody. But right now what they're using is that they're using people that survive the Ebola infection. They're taking the blood and they're transfusing to patients that are infected. So they're using like a transfusion exchange. Marburg virus, bats also, spillover event. The thing is that actually the Marburg virus in the Cold War, there was a research dedicated for Marburg virus. They already have weapons for this. So this is something that was going to use in the Cold War, but it was never used, right? So this is something that could happen. The only difference with Ebola is that they will have some rash, and but the mortality is lower, but it could be 90% also. So, and the treatment is supportive care. Lassa fever. Interesting, the rodents that are infected with the Lassa virus, they will shred the virus for lifetime. So basically, your place or places that are infected with these rodents, you will be always at risk of having this infection. So the thing is also person-to-person transmission is lowest mortality than Ebola and Marburg, but the thing is that patients are hospitalized for this, 20% of the patient die. Is there epidemic, 50% will die. The thing is that yearly, 5,000 people die with Lassa fever. So this is something that, let's say like dengue for Puerto Rico, this is something that is a real threat yearly in other places. So, and people that survive, most of them will have will have complication and will get death, right? Treatment, ribavirin, I don't know. We don't know that ribavirin. We don't know if it really works, but that's the treatment they're giving right now. So this hemorrhagic fever, or basically very infectious, person-to-person droplet. Also, some people think that it could be airborne transmitted also. So Ebola, almost 12,000 deaths on the outbreak, 2014, 2016. They already have been evidence of they have attempted use. They use rodent excrement in trying to use as a weapon. So these people are crazy, right? So now, anyone know what is CRISPR? Yeah. So you know what? I noticed that Bill Gates is really involved in the healthcare. I didn't know. Yeah. So the thing is that another quote, he said that the next epidemic could originate on the computer screen of a terrorist intent on using genetic engineering to create a synthetic version of the smallpox virus or a super contagious and deadly strain of the flu. So CRISPR basically is that, like he mentioned, is just cut and paste of a DNA. So people literally can take the DNA or the RNA of a disease and try to do it for good things, right? Cancer, Huntington, Down syndrome, Parkinson. Apparently they found, they did some mosquitoes immune to the malaria. The negative side is it could be used by a biological weapon, right? And I didn't know, you go to New York, actually there's a curriculum there. You can learn how to do this stuff. So people are getting educated to do this stuff. Apparently it's super easy. I don't think I will put it off, but apparently it's easy to do it, right? So healthy in the morning and death by night. You know what they see they're trying to mention there? Kill more people in 24 weeks than AIDS in 24 years. Kill more people in a single year than in 4 years of the Black Death. Kill more people than the World War I. Yeah. Spanish flu. So you can see the death rate in between the 1918 and the 19th. You can see this. It was crazy, right? 5 million people got infected. So almost 100 million people die, like 5% of the population. And we know that when these data are always minimized, so probably a lot of people, more people die secondary to that. So my point is that now I had to see that Dr. Lashmi, she was the one that gave me this idea, right? So using the CRISPR, their stuff, you're able to genetic engineer influenza, right? To be more virulent, resistant to vaccine, and the drugs that we have right now. Things that flu, it's difficult to think that the flu will be like a attack, right? Because it's so common, so it's easily spread. So also some animals and avians are reservoirs, so it's hard to eradicate. And the thing is that already a bunch of guys, they use, remember the avian flu, right? The bird flu. So normally the way that you get infected with this was like close contact with the birds, right? But they were able to modify this virus to be able to spread airborne and droplets. So they were able to, actually with the animals, they found that the airborne transmission was possible with the flu. He got in a lot of trouble, a lot of litigation. Eventually he was able to publish his findings. So remember that movie? I thought it was crazy. Probably this could be. Yeah. So they were not that crazy, right?
It's real.
Yeah, this is real.
It's real.
So the Spanish flu genome is already sequenced, so people know how to create a Spanish flu. So the thing is that we as physicians, especially ID physicians, we have to be able to identify this. I don't know if we'll be prepared for this, because this is not something that we are obviously don't see every day, but this is something, a real threat. This could happen. So the thing is that we already have history to prove this. And remember that biotechnology is a dual use. So with all this technology able to travel around the world, a pandemic will be worse than previously. So, and the thing is that are we really prepared? Because I don't think we have enough resources, I think, to have like a chaos like these proportions. So yeah, so that will be. And remember, this will be my last presentation as a single guy.